Hello, I'm Joseph, and today I want to talk about buying a cheap laptop to get into programming. Now, I do want to put some saving grace here, is in that if you already have a Chromebook, an iOS, or an Android device, there are things you can do to technically work around this. So you can program on anything, to be truthful, but it's usually limited to web development stuff. It's still a really good thing to start learning on. But if you want the ability to grow down the line, have a little bit more oomph in your performance of your computer, then yeah, you can definitely do the following. But first, I want to show a Chromebook here and to say just do not buy these things. They're absolute garbage. They're really slow. There's no expandability down the line to do anything remotely useful, and you're stuck with Chrome OS. You can punch through with Crotini or Crouton. You can look at those two technologies to get like a Linux terminal command line thing, install packages, and maybe program in Nano or Vim or set up Visual Studio Code Server. This is the same story I'm going to keep repeating for iOS and Android. For iOS, you can buy a $50 dongle from Apple. You have to buy it from Apple because if you buy it from Amazon, it has high latency, poor picture quality, and does not have DRM support, so you have to buy it from Apple. But you can download this app. It's free, called iShell. It gives you an emulated x86 Linux environment that you can work off, install packages with, so on and so forth. Same thing as the Linux thing or the Chromebook situation. You install Nano or Vim or native Vim, set up Visual Studio Code Server. The only thing is, every time I try to get Visual Studio Code Server running on these mobile devices, it doesn't stay up running for very long. They either crash from no more memory, or they just die because the operating system killed them. Okay, so the other one for Android is called Termux. Download it from Asteroid, not from Google Play. There's a whole blog post on that you can read if you want. But same story. You have Nano, Vim, full Linux environment. The only thing is, this is not emulated. This is running on a native architect that you have for that phone. So ARM64. It has Arch support, Ubuntu, and Alpine. When I say support, it's like the package repositories that you can set up and use from. You're not necessarily getting a full graphical environment. You could technically do it, like you can set this up VNC into the actual like Linux operating system, but you need a lot of RAM available for that, and even then it's still pretty poor performance out of all that things. Well, with all that said, if you are any of these and you just, all you need access is to a browser. That's all you need access to. You look up GitHub code spaces. It's free, at least for now, and you can work off GitHub repositories. Now, you do need to learn how to use Git and stuff like that, but they give you what's called Visual Studio Code Server. I brought this up previously. This is what it is. It's Visual Studio Code in the browser. This is not unique to GitHub. This was a project started outside of GitHub from other people that was interested. And, you can find this as a service that you can use for other things here. So, for example, Code Anywhere gives you the same exact editor that you saw on GitHub. With the example that this is not free, $6 a month, or you can do a whole year for about $54. They give you one container to work with at a time, so you can set up a bunch of different development environments as you would want. They also give you remote connections, so you can SSH, FTP, FTPS, FTP into shared hosting, virtual private hosting, cloud hosting, or a bare bone metal servers. Doesn't matter. What you basically get is you get a real-time listing of all the files on there, and you use this editor that you saw up here to edit from that. They do have a free 7-day trial. I used them for a year, like 3 years ago, for emergency purposes. They give you the range of IP addresses, so if you're in a security around area that needs to at least lock ports down, stuff like that, you can lock the ports, because you can go to FAQs, look at the port ranges or the IP ranges that they provide to you to use. Okay, so with all that said, let's look at kind of what you'd be looking at for the computers that we should probably be trying to get. So we want something that is an Intel quad core with VTX support. You can go AMD, but the problem is that AMD laptop processors at the time frame that I'm looking at were just garbage and did not actually compete with Intel processors. But make sure it has VTX. That's virtualization. AMD was called AMD V for their virtualization. The way you find that out is you just go to Intel Arc or the AMD sites, and you look for the actual Intel VTX right there. And that's virtualization. That gets you into VirtualBox, Android emulators, Docker, so on and so forth, for Windows environments. Now, if you're getting into Docker on Windows, you want Windows 10 Pro and so on and so forth. I'll talk into that a little bit more. Next is, let's start with 8 gigs. This is to make sure we can upgrade down at some point. Both of these, all these CPU architectures I'm going to show have up to 32 gigabytes of storage for RAM. But most of them only implement up to 16 for obviousness of the power consumption that happens when you put in more sticks of RAM. The other is, this is a big ask, but it is going to be available on all these business laptops here, which is an M2 228 PCI Gen slot. That is, if you don't know what that is, that's these little sticks here that you see. You can get them pretty cheap. So here's like a half a terabyte for 40 bucks. You can get a whole terabyte for under $80. So very, very fast performance. When you're doing something like Node.js development, you have a ton of packages, Webpack, Vite, all these different things use a bazillion files underneath them. Having this is going to boost that lower end CPU immensely because it's going to be able to chew through all these files there. The other is we want to make sure it's a business laptop. There's a huge swath of business laptops available for you that is very, very cheap. They mostly come with a matte screen. Some of them have 1080p monitors. Some of them do not have that 1080p, but they are still matte, and all of them support 2 external displays, and all of them usually have some type of docking system that we can use. Okay, so the reason why I would also say with business laptop is we want replacement parts. We want screens, keyboards, batteries, power supplies. If we lose any of these things, we can make sure we can get these parts for years down the line, and all these laptops will be living for a very long time because they're all business grade, they're not cheap, or at least when they were first purchased, and they all have very good replacement, third-party market replacement parts that you can use for these laptops. Okay, I know I'm talking a lot. We haven't even got into actually seeing any laptops here. It's already 6.5 minutes in, but let's go ahead and start at least looking at what I'm talking about for CPU performance here. So the Intel i5 6300U is what I would say as like the baseline. Let's just start with there. Don't go any lower than that. And here's the Intel Celeron N4000 that we saw in that Chromebook. You see how atrocious the performance here is. Do not get these, please. This is like the absolute bare minimum. Now, for reference, I have an AMD FX 8350. That's the desktop class processor from like 2012. But you can see the performance here is exactly the same as the i7 8550U. And the reason for that is that this was this is a laptop I have that was a powerhouse that I used for virtually all my development. The only catch was I blue screened out on something, and this was not a business laptop. It was consumer grade, and then the audio jack, I have to disable audio, just even try to get Windows to try to work. If not, it like blares out these random bips and static sounds and stuff like that. And so I just installed Linux on it, do Linux development stuff, Android development, everything I need to do. I just can't use like Adobe products and stuff like that on here. But it is a beast of a machine that I use, and it was a laptop. It has a battery, so I can carry it around. It was a 2-in-1, so on and so forth. I don't want to talk about it, but yeah. The thing about that is that this processor, the 8250, is just a hair step down. It is literally the same exact performance. You get the same cache levels, same as that graphical performance units, the integrated graphics, everything exactly the same, with the exception that you get a little boost in single core performance, things around like 9% type of thing at max. Like it's there's no reason to go with the 8550U, basically is what I'm saying. Look at these two different CPUs. Now you do get double the performance out of multi-core. Single core, you get a little bit of a bump here, so that'll be useful. And I will say that out of these processors, you'll be able to watch 4K 60 frames per second on YouTube here, even though you don't have a 4K monitor. So we'll start there. Understanding at least the baseline that we want to have at least 1,500 for single core, and multi-core we need at least 3,000 plus to be useful out of that, to be able to drive this thing further into the future as we continue to do development on it. Okay, so here's my strategy that I normally use. Now, actually, let me go back here. The starting price that you'd be looking at for the 6300 is $170. The starting price for the 8250 is around $230. So when you go to eBay and you look for this stuff, make sure you just put that base price, because if not, you can get all these different listings for like $80, $100, but they're going to be missing battery, they're going to be missing hard drive, they're going to be missing AC, which is the power supply, they're going to be missing some keys on the keyboard, they're going to be missing a lot of stuff. They're badly damaged, they're grade D or DF grade laptop. So let's just start at $170 there. So I go to eBay, I type in i5. Dell Latitude is the target for this. There are other business level laptops like the HP Elites and ProBooks, the Lenovo ThinkPads like T40s or something like 400 somethings. But Dell Latitude just seems to have the most consistent, and that the things that I look for are already there. So here we have $170. You see a bunch of them are just hitting that mark right there, and that is just a sweet spot for these types here. There are different types, so you can see the E5570, the E7270. So I'm going to look at this E270 here, and we're going to look at kind of what we want to be hitting here. So you can see that already we can tell it's an M2 slot, but I already know from looking at this, all of these 7270 series, 7280 series, they have M2 slots already there. But you can see it's pretty good condition. It's not that bad. There, it doesn't show any IO or any ports, but we can look that up later or somewhere else. We want to make sure that comes with all these different things. We want to make sure it has power supply, it has a battery, has a hard drive, has Windows 10 Pro. That will give us that hypervisor support that we need for Docker. So Windows 10 Pro right there. It's not turned on. I don't like that. It doesn't show the power supply, but you can always just make sure, talk to the person who sells this. Make sure whoever is selling this actually has a bunch of stars. The more stars, the more better. And see if there's a return policy, 30-day return policy on any of this stuff. But yeah, free shipping, $170, fully working laptop. You can upgrade it down the line, and then we need to make sure all those check boxes are made. So quad core, yes. VTX support, obviously yes. 8 gigs of RAM already there, but is it upgradable? I don't know. Are there 2 slots of RAM? I don't know. PCI M2, yeah, this is already met. It shows it in the description as an M2 right there. It's only 256 gigs, but you can always upgrade it later. It's a business laptop. It has a matte screen. It is not a 1080p monitor. We're going to find that out, but it has 2 external displays and has a decent docking system that we can look into. So let me just show you the dock real quick. So this is a $35 dock here, comes with the power cord itself. It's like a faster charger, being able to support power on demand for some of these USB things. But if you look in the back here, you get a ton of IO, you get USB, different type of things. You don't get HDMI, but you get DisplayPort, DVI, VGA, and you get 2 USB ports, serial port, and then on the side of these machines here, you also get more USB ports with audio, then whatever. You basically slap it down into this thing, $35. Not a bad deal for an external dock there. So you can treat this as a desktop and it'll be properly powered, and everything else that's plugged into it would also be properly powered as well. The way that you'll find out the true technical details about this is you type in that same thing, you type in specs, you can go to Dell.com, you look it up here. Actually, that's not the one that we want here. So we want this one here. This is the right one. So 7270 is what we were looking at here, the 7270. And then we look at the specifications. We want to look at the memory. Okay, 2 still-in slots, exactly what we want it. It goes up to 16 gigs, not 32, but 16 is still better than nothing. And most of these are 1 stick of 8 gigs anyway. So you just buy $30 more, you get an extra stick of 8 gigs of RAM to get that full 16 gigs of memory. We also want to look at video specifications. So we can just make sure it's HDMI and mini DisplayPort out. If you're buying a mini DisplayPort to like HDMI, you might as well just get the dock anyways, because the amount of price difference, it doesn't make any sense. You can look at the ports and connectors just to make sure. So it's 3 USB-Cs, three ports, so not 3.1 or 3.2, obviously, because this is a really old laptop. It does come with Ethernet. One of them has power share, which means you can like charge your phone while the device is turned off. Device specifications or displays. This is where we're going to find out if it's an HD display. It is not 1080p. It needs to be, so you can see the resolution here. It's basically a 720p monitor. If it is full HD, FHD, then you know it's a 1080p monitor here. So you can see that down there as well. And the last thing is, does this have Bluetooth? Does this have Wi-Fi? Which they usually do have. So if we look at the let me see, I think communications, you can see that as a 1 gigabit Ethernet, has Bluetooth 4.1 LE on there, and obviously WLAN wireless crap. So it has Wi-Fi obviously. So it checks off all the boxes. The only thing is, it does not have a 1080p monitor, but it starts at $170, and it has a same screen resolution that you'd find on these Chromebooks anyways. And knowing that you can have a dock system and 2 external displays and all this other stuff there, it's all that. $170 gives you decent enough performance out of that. Now, if you're looking for the 8250 U series, you can also still go with Dell Latitude. They seemingly have a very good business side of these laptops of high availability. There's a lot that's not going to be available at this price range, so I would say $230 to start. Same things, make sure the condition is marked as used, low price is there, and you kind of see already like what we're looking at here. So around 230-ish is where we would start. So you can see that these things have like USB-C. If they have USB-C, normally they have like a little logo on it that you can look at. See, you can see some specifications here. So yep, blah blah blah. Any ports to show. So here you see that it has HDMI and USB-C. There's a little logo on it that you cannot see that is display out, which means that you actually you just buy like a USB-C to a VGA dongle, whatever, or get a dock system for this as well. And yeah, I mean, it's not that bad. It's a Latitude. The thing is, like, the Latitudes are a business grade. Do not go with like the Inspirons or the Envies or the anything else. Like, just make sure it is a business level. Make sure it comes with Windows 10 Pro if you really want to do that development. If not, slap Linux on there and you can work with that. But yeah, that's basically it. Just make sure it has all those things. Just has 30-day warranty, so already that's pretty good to know. And it's, it has a, the guy's star rating isn't that great, but knowing that we have a 30-day return policy is nice to have. And that basically wraps us up. I know it's a long video. There's a lot of information I threw at you, but just know that, if you're on a Chromebook or an iOS or Android, you can technically program. Look at GitHub Codespaces, look at Code Anywhere, other alternatives like that. If you really do want a laptop, I would say the minimum to be a usable, not badly damaged and broken one, 170 for the 6300 series, and 230 for the 8250U series. And that is it. Hopefully you guys have a luck from finding a decent laptop to use, and good luck on your endeavors and learning to code or be better at coding, having a better machine at hand.